You've just joined the Prepper Broadcasting Network, where we promote self-reliance and independence. The views and opinions expressed are strictly those of the host or their guests. Visit us in the interactive chat room at prepperbroadcasting.com.
Hey guys, Charlie McGrath of WideAwakeNews.com here with a message about Legacy Premium Freeze-Dried Storable Food available at PrepareWise.com. I recently returned from the manufacturing facility and I am here to tell you it was impressive. Over 50 employees working hard to produce and ship the highest quality, best tasting, certified GMO-free freeze-dried storable food on the market. And now that I've been to the facility, I can tell you this. These guys, from receiving to production to shipping, are dedicated to one thing: quality. Do yourself, do your loved ones a favor. Be prepared for an uncertain future by having Legacy Premium Freeze-Dried Storable Food as your insurance policy to the unknown. Visit the folks at PrepareWise.com today. You can call them at 888-545-6265. That number again, 888-545-6265.
Welcome to Preparing for Life Storms with Bear Prepper. Today is Tuesday, December 18th, 2012, and it's my pleasure to welcome you in tonight. We're on air from 8 to 9 p.m. Central Time every Tuesday on American Preppers Radio, powered by PrepperBroadcasting.com. We broadcast 11 different hosts 7 days a week, so please check out the host tab for more information on shows and times. You can also listen to all previous shows under the host archive. If you'd like to join us in the chat room, come on over to PrepperBroadcasting.com and click on the Listen and Chat at the top of the page. It'll then take you to the chat room. Just create your name or accept the default and come on in. You'll always be in for a treat with some lively chat and interesting conversation. So tomorrow night, Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central Time, we have Goat Hollow and the Surreal News, the facts about where our world is heading. And you know, with the things that have gone on over the last week, that's going to be some really great information he puts forward. It's great to see all you people in the chat room tonight. Thanks for joining us. Tonight we have a special guest, author Frank M. Ahearn of How to Disappear, Erase Your Digital Footprint, Leave False Trails, and Vanish Without a Trace. And my favorite book, The Digital Hitman, His Weapons for Combating the Digital World. He is a privacy expert and a digital manipulator. He started out as a skip tracer that had to change his job direction as technology and the good old government controls increased. Frank, thank you for joining us tonight.
Appreciate it. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Talk about a strange week we got leading into tonight.
Yeah, well, I think every week is a strange week in this country.
Yeah, and it just seems to be getting a little worse every day. So we've got our seats ready, and let's go ahead and get started. You know, as preppers, we really can relate to the quote you used in your book by Sun Tzu. To not prepare is the greatest of crimes. To be prepared beforehand for any contingency is the greatest virtues. You know, as preppers, that's something that we strive for, to be prepared for what potentially may happen so that we're not caught with our pants down.
I agree. I think, especially in privacy today, the key is to be prepared because nobody's going to do it for you. They're just going to take your information and do what they want with it. So I'm a huge fan of Sun Tzu when it comes to that philosophy.
I would agree totally. Now, I guess the concept of how to disappear in plain sight is one that's really hard for most of us to grasp, me included. Can you give us a little background on that and maybe a little background about yourself and your experience?
Well, basically when I talk about, disappearing in plain sight, I kind of talk about that in the sense of, internet privacy in the sense of using credit cards and, banking and how you exist like that, and also a question of, digital trails that you leave behind in life because the awareness is the most important, okay? And most of us can disappear in life in plain sight if we are not involved with media or if we're not involved in social media, which is the biggest problem because it's the idea of keeping us connected. And I think that's a huge danger because people don't recognize that as being a privacy issue. They just figure it's a connection to other people, it's a connection to the digital world. And my philosophy, because my background comes from locating people, extracting sensitive information from organizations, and I know how information can be used against people, and I find it very scary that we're at a point in society where people are just giving their information away, and that's really what people need to question when it comes to privacy or, existing, in plain sight, because if you're giving it away, then what good is personal privacy? And that's kind of like the stance that I take as far as privacy with the digital world.
Okay, and that makes a lot of sense. Social media, you're right, it is something that we're all connected to. I just recently started a Facebook, and I started it under my YouTube name, Bear Prepper. And so I kind of, about once a week, I go surf the internet and try to find myself and see what kind of things are being said about me and to ensure that it's not tagged to my true name. But
right. I'm sorry, but something you said important. One of the problems with information online is not so much what you're doing, but what other people are spreading. You go to a party somewhere and they upload a bunch of pictures to Facebook and they tag your photo. Or they, you meet somebody and they just Twitter, just met Frank Ahearn in the lobby of my building, and people know where you're at. So that's a huge issue as well, as the third parties putting your information up. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, and you're right, because I did a meetup recently, and one of the individuals happened to know me from my real life, and I had to, make sure they totally understood that my real life and my prepping life are separate, and they were not to take any pictures. They were not to post anything. And if they did, then they would be banned from not only my videos, but I'm sure there are a lot of people that I associate with that would also ban them, because our privacy is a big deal. It's a huge deal. We're out there to help, but we still have to maintain it.
When you are in, quote, a public eye and you're basically bringing forth a philosophy of something, other people don't seem to recognize the boundaries that, wow, maybe I should ask that person if I can post their picture online, or maybe I should ask if I can tweet about them, or, my sister on a family party once put my photo up, and I'm like, are you crazy? You know what I do for a living? And it would have exposed, my whole family, where they lived, who they were, sisters and things like that. So you have to be careful.
Right. Okay, so with all the electronic media, people are very exposed. How much more difficult does that make it for us to then hide ourselves after the fact?
Well, so the technology is like a double-edged sword, okay? It's a question of who's better at using it. And I kind of equate it like this. If you were looking to disappear and they hired me to find you, you would have some serious problems, but I'd find you no problem. The key is, is not to, quote, subscribe. It's like taking the philosophy of Timothy Leary and just dropping out of the media. I mean, that to me is how you disappear. And technology only creates, it duplicates information. Websites like Intellius, or ZabaSearch, which are like the database websites, all they're doing is regurgitating information. And just because it's online doesn't mean it's true, it doesn't mean it's accurate, and it doesn't mean it's up to date. So if you're good at finding information, it's a negative if somebody's looking for you. But if you're looking to disappear, you can also use media, bogus Facebook accounts, bogus Twitters, LinkedIn. So you can use the internet as a friend to create deception. And someone looking for you might find those fake photos of you in Tahiti and think you're in Tahiti. So I think it's easy to disappear now at this point with technology, and because we got so much going for us with that.
Well, I kind of started following your advice after I read your book, and there are probably a couple people that actually know my real name, at least the beginning of my real name, my first name. And I started worrying after reading your book that maybe that wasn't such a wise idea. So I started tagging elements with my real name to associate it with a false name so as to cause confusion. Is that an effective means?
That's a great tool. Not only that, somebody who has your name and they live in Detroit, basically you start tagging information and you give them almost like credit for your online information. Because one of the things, when I work with a client, for example, if they have frequent flyer accounts, which is easy to access and easy to pretext, what I would do is I would find Frank Ahearn in Michigan or in Iowa, and I would just transfer that frequent flyer account over to them. So whoever's looking for me, they'll think I'm the guy in Iowa, not the guy in Toronto or something like that. So it's great to use other people who share your name as credit for who you are. This way people think it's you in different places.
Okay. Hey, folks, if you'd like to call into the show and ask some questions, you can call in at 347-202-0228. And remember, press 1 if you'd like to speak to Frank. Okay. So are there tools out there that we can utilize to help us disappear or hide our true identities?
It depends on what you're looking to accomplish. I mean, to me, the number one tool is not to give your information away, not to partake. I mean, it's a very basic concept. Websites exist and social sites exist to utilize your information so they can make money off of advertising. And if you partake in that, your information will be spread. So if you don't partake in it, you don't necessarily have to worry. But I think if you create a lot of digital distortion online, or you build fake blogs about yourself, or you put up fake pictures of you in different cities, I think just utilizing deception is the best tool anybody can use to either disappear or to create a lower profile. Because when someone's looking for you, they have to prove or disprove that information, which is very costly and also very time-consuming. So I think that's a real popular thing to do. But it depends. I mean, there's prepaid credit cards you could use. There's prepaid cell phones. There are guerrilla emails that expire within an hour. So the Internet is filled with a lot of cool tools, and I say definitely take advantage of them.
Yeah, and you brought up prepaid cell phones. As preppers and any of you that are listening in or in the chat room, if you don't have at least 5 prepaid cell phones in your preps, then, you need to get that done. And be careful which ones you choose, right? Because there are some that aren't really prepaid in the sense that you've got to register them and that kind of thing.
Right. Like, for example, as far as the prepaid phones, my suggestion is, be kind to the homeless person and pay them to go buy the phone for you and throw them a couple of bucks. This way their photo is on the store camera and not yours. So there's also a way of, not just getting the tools, but also how you get them is very important. And I always find, to be honest with you, not that I'm plugging Virgin Mobile, but Virgin, Cricket, those are two great companies because they don't have customer service. And they also use other cell companies, towers, and numbers. So to me, they're the most secure to use if you want to protect your identity.
Great. That's some great information. I think I've got some Virgin and some Cricket in mine. Kind of did a mix, and I did actually have someone else buy them. So I gave them a 20 and said, go in and buy me 5 phones. And then I realized I should have went to 5 different stores.
Yeah, that would have been a good move, too, going to different stores. And, the key is, too, also, what I do, too, is I'll have one phone for strictly incoming that is forwarded to a different prepaid cell phone, and then I'll have a specific pay phone that goes for outgoing, and I use a prepaid calling card to make the call that I need to make. This way, you pretty much double up your security as far as identity.
Oh, that is so smart. I'm so glad we have you on tonight. Frank, you want to go ahead and give out your website?
Disappear.info, very simple. I got some cool stuff there and some tips and things like that I think you'll find useful.
Wonderful, wonderful. I guess we got no one calling in yet, so we're going to move on to the next little question here. Okay, you talk about cell phone rules in your book. What do you mean by cell phone rules? I know a lot of us understand that, but I'm sure there's some people that don't understand.
Well, when it comes to cell phones, if you're using a traditional carrier like Verizon, T-Mobile, whatever, your information, whatever you do, you dial, you text, you surf online, that information is be pretty much kept forever, or at least 18 months. And I suggest not to use them. And the tools I'm talking about is using a prepaid phone, but separating them for like I said before, the incoming and having that forwarded to another number. Also, a great tool is using the Google numbers, too. You can have a Google number forward to a line, too, which then forwards to another line. Just kind of mix it up, the incoming and the outcoming, and also have the area codes in different states, too. You just don't want all the same city. You want to spread them about throughout the country. And what's cool, too, is some of them you can have in different languages. I think in Virgin you can have like French, Spanish, or English, the reception. And I do them some in Spanish, some in French, and if somebody doesn't know me, they'll think they got the wrong number. So they think if Frank doesn't have that prepaid in Spanish. So those are the tools that I talk about with the phones. Oh,
that is wonderful. Your book is just chocked with wonderful information. And folks, if they haven't checked it out, check it out. He does have an e-Kindle version, which is what I got so that I can refer to it as I need it. Some really great information. And I think you've also got that on Amazon besides on your website.
Right, you can buy the books on Amazon.
So, okay, so you talk about digital distortion. I think you've explained it a little bit. But isn't that where you talked about 3 different types of digital distortion?
Yeah, but I think the key is there's a couple of different things. One, you want to just distort the information known about you, okay, meaning, let's say you're a blogger and you live in Boston. We know that about you. You want to basically blog about moving to Memphis, or you want to blog about moving to Chicago, okay, and then you want to blog about, getting a different job or marrying a fake person. And what you're doing is you're just creating all this information that somebody has to prove or disprove. So then the other tool is also finding somebody who shares your name and blogging and giving them credit for who you are. This way, let's say you're, I just want to kind of jump around. Michael Savage, who's a radio host, he wasn't let into the UK because of his radio show, okay? And what a lot of bloggers don't seem to realize, when you're crossing countries, they search blogs to see who you are. If you have a radical blog, you really have to question whether you want people to know if that's attached to you. So sometimes you want to just put it out there that person is not you. Because I know somebody else was coming from France, and they were held in customs for 2 hours because they had a radical blog about being this radical socialist in France. And I've had concerns and issues going through customs as well, because they look up my name, and here I'm talking about offshore banking and all these different things. And so you want to protect your identity and sometimes give it credit to someone else out there. This way you don't get hassled by it. And also to protect your family and your privacy, because you never know who's reading it and how they react to things.
Yeah, I get that. You know, I went up and I did an internet search on you to see what kind of information I could find. And you've done pretty good at directing it towards positive information and not revealing too much except what you wanted to reveal. So that was interesting to see it in action and in motion.
Right. I think what most people need to be concerned about are the database information like Intellius. I don't know if you're familiar with Zava Search, but most people would be surprised. I mean, you put in Zava Search and you put your name to Zava Search, it'll give you a history of your addresses. It'll have your date of birth. Sometimes it has your home phone number. And I think those are the big concerns people should really question. And how these companies get that information is, I mean, you call your utility company, what do they say to you? You have an updated phone number, where you're working now? By the way, you have an email, you have a cell phone. And that information, a lot of companies sell.
Yeah, and, you know, I got harassed about a month ago by a police officer. I was kind of dazing a little bit, and I went a little too fast, and got pulled over. And when he asked me where I worked and what my work phone number was, I looked at him and, you know, of course I don't talk to him. It's yes, no, yes, no. You know, I'm not going to get into a conversation. And I said, we don't have work phone. And he started screaming at me.
Right.
And, you know, he's like, you've got to have a work phone. And it's like, I'm sitting there thinking, it's none of your business. I'm not giving it to you. Anytime I'm asked my phone number, I just give them the 867-5309 song, and that's it. And I refuse to give my real number to anyone. And, you know, nowadays, like I said, especially with this, you know, my sadness goes out to the family members and the community for what happened in Connecticut. But this is going to lead into a whole new struggle for us as preppers because of the fact that the mother was a prepper. And so, of course, they're going to use that against us, which is absolutely ridiculous, but you know it's coming. Mm-hmm. And so to me, it's become even more important that at some point in time, we are going to be considered the bad element, I guess you could say. And so being able to go back into the woodwork, especially someone like me that's on the radio, on YouTube, and I do local meetups for preparedness, and being able to go back into the woodwork when I need to is really important.
Right.
Okay, it looks like we got Julia in queue. If you'll hold on just a second. Julia, you want to come on in?
Yes, sure. Hello.
Good evening, Julia.
Hi. Frank, I'd like to ask a question that maybe a lot of people have on their minds. I'm very, very concerned about email privacy, not only in my home, pardon me, and on my personal computer, but I'm over YouTube a lot and have a channel and get emails back and forth and subscribe to various channels. And I really, really believe that they are keeping all that information documented, every single bit of it. Now, I never got, thank God, involved in Facebook because I just don't like all this compiling information. But I don't want to get you off the subject. The thing is, what do you suggest that we could do to protect our personal emails? One other thing I wanted to say to Bexel Prepper, maybe if you could spread this around. I thought this today. I'm not a gunslinger at all, but I thought about this. Maybe you all need to get together and put on YouTube some very, very good, thoroughly documented incidents where lives were saved because somebody had a gun with them. That might help alleviate, I think, the problem with this gun situation and the Second Amendment. But going back to Frank with the emails.
Okay, your first problem is using the word email privacy in the same sentence. That just doesn't exist, okay? The bottom line, if you hit send, it's a digital trail, okay? I mean, I suggest people, build your own website, okay, and people you want to communicate with. You have a private message board, and you communicate that way, and then delete at the end of the day the messages. And, that's the best you're going to get when it comes to privacy. Because you have to remember, whatever you send out, there's going to be a copy of it, forever. We see it all the time in court cases. And, we see everything printed out in court cases. So there is no privacy that way.
So every email, what would you suggest, how do you erase those tracks once they're there with the email? What would you suggest?
Are you talking about erasing it on your computer or erasing it?
Well, I mean, like our servers, they're probably compiling that information, saving all the emails, information you're sending out. How can we erase that?
You have to have somebody hack into their system. Unfortunately, it's a federal crime. But you can't erase
No, I don't mean that. I mean, how can I personally on my computer? What would you suggest?
To be honest with you, I'm not technical in that sense. I would suggest you kind of, look online, and I'm sure there are great, hacking groups out there that suggest the best things to use to clean your sites. But that's your computer. That's really not my expertise. But keep in mind, the minute you hit send, what does it matter if it's on your computer? You sent it. There's a trace of it already. It exists.
Yeah,
and
I see.
That's what I would keep in mind.
I see. Wow. I ordered your books, Frank.
Okay, thank you.
Sounded like a lot of very interesting things. Thank you.
Thank you. I try.
Thank you, Julia, for calling in.
Well, thank you, too. And you...
Okay, I guess she hung up. The interesting thing is I've got a lot of people who watch my videos that do not subscribe to my channel. They do not log into YouTube. They do everything they possibly can to keep themselves private, and that's always an option. Wouldn't another option be to create an email account from something like Yahoo or something and use that to register yourself?
Right. I mean, you can do that, but there's still, quote, a trace behind it. I mean, see, if I was going to subscribe to a site, I would definitely use a different email. I would not use my own email. I would just basically, I delete emails left and right, except what's on my website. But like I said, the minute you hit send, it exists. And what people have to be aware of, especially for things like Google Plus, it just lists so much information about you, and it connects all this different media. And I was just messing with it the other day, testing it out, and I realized that I had an email account under YouTube, and then I did the Google Plus just out of curiosity, and it actually linked them. And I'm realizing they don't tell you that. It just showed up. And so I'm just writing this whole thing about them. So you have to be very careful with the emails, especially if you're using one email for many different sites. I suggest have different emails for different sites.
That's a great idea. We got a couple questions in the chat room from Prepping You. She wants to know what you do about contact information for your children's school or your utilities. Do you give them bogus information? What do you do about those?
Well, I mean, in order to get utilities, okay, you basically need a Social Security number. However, you can use a corporation and, give them that. Or sometimes tell them you're a Canadian citizen, you don't have a Social Security number, and you just pay a higher deposit. But as far as utilities, cable, phone, and everybody else, when it comes to contact information, I don't give them the correct contact information. Or what you do is you get the account in your name, and then you start slowly changing things, Frank to Fred, Ahearn to, a hernia, you just start messing with it. And you, this way what happens is the database information just has a multiple of, or a slew of information, and not all of it's correct. And that's part of the digital distortion, and a lot of it starts offline, like cable TV, phone companies, things of that nature. You know, as far as your kids, to be very honest with you, it's a risky situation, and because you don't know how that will affect the kid, school, or anything. So that's something you have to decide. You can always misspell the kid's name.
That's an idea. Hey, it looks like my producer is in the queue and wants to talk to you.
All right.
Hey, G-Man.
Hi, Bear. Thanks for letting me in. Hello, Frank. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you very much.
My first question, I think you kind of already answered, and that was, what could somebody in my position do to hide myself that has a network like this? And from what I'm hearing, I'm pretty much screwed. There's nothing I can do.
That, you know, you can also pretty much start using a different name and perhaps kill yourself 6 months down the road saying you died, and say, you know, the producer of the show has passed away, and you start creating disinformation that way. And then in a year from now, the new name will be the producer of the show, and you'll just kind of be, you know, left in the dust. Hopefully that works.
Okay. Well, cool. All I got to do is kill myself.
Please don't do that.
Now, my second question, I haven't seen it brought up in chat, although I'm bouncing back and forth, and it's hard for me to keep up with the chat. You folks that are putting questions in there, please feel free to call in. But what about people that come into my chat room? Can they be tracked just for coming into this chat room?
You know, I'm not technical in that sense, but I would assume absolutely, because, you know, whoever the server is, you know, has, you know, who's coming from where. But, you know, I'm assuming a lot of the people are using those, I forget what they call the anonymizers, that block them. I mean, that's what they should be doing is using those types of things. But if it's digital, it can be traced. That's my philosophy. That's the bottom line.
As a computer geek, G-Man, you betcha it's all saved.
Well, I kind of assumed as much because I do have access to IP addresses. That's what enables me to ban those that are unruly and let them back in if they give me a good reason. And that IP address, that's what is used or could be used to track somebody, I'm assuming. Is that not correct?
That's exactly how it's done.
Yeah, but you can use an IP routers that come from different areas that you can route through.
Right.
And it won't ever be the right IP. So there are ways around that. It's one of the things I used to do years ago is I used to track people myself. And I stopped doing it when a friend of mine begged me to track her husband and found out he had an alternate life married to another woman for 15 years.
Wow.
So, yeah, not a pretty picture. And the dummy was dumb enough to have his truck parked in front of the house on Google.
Wow.
When you put down the street view.
You're kidding me.
No.
But, you know, you hear these stories all the time about, you know, a spouse finding an alternate Facebook account belonging to their husband with a different name. And, you know, it's the whole digital world. The bottom line is, you know, you just never know where you're going to be snapped up. I mean, you could do something stupid and some 16-year-old kid who's got a video of you, and next thing they post it to YouTube, and you're the next sensation on YouTube, and everybody knows what an idiot you are. So, you know, you also have to remember, in public, you have to have the philosophy that this is being recorded right now, and at any moment this could go live online.
Yeah, and that's the scary part.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, let me take a break here, and let's get a word from our sponsors.
Tonight's broadcast brought to you in part by Joe and Amy Alton, the authors of the #1 Amazon bestseller, The Doom and Bloom Survival Medicine Handbook. See their articles in Backwoods Homes, Survivalist, Self-Reliance Illustrated, and Survival Quarterly magazines. Visit Joe and Amy's website at www.doomandbloom.net.
This broadcast is brought to you in part by Ozark Mountain Preparedness, providing top-quality instructional courses for people who desire to pursue a self-reliant lifestyle, whether in the wilds or right at home. Course topics include wilderness and urban survival, fur trapping, bushcraft, primitive skills, long-term wilderness living, land navigation, GPS, home disaster preparation, outdoor cooking, food procurement and storage, foraging wild edibles, and many others. Visit Ozark Mountain Preparedness at www.ozarkmountainpreparedness.com.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to Preparing for Life Storms with our special guest, author Frank M. Ahearn. And, you know, Frank, the chat room is absolutely on fire. The questions are going by faster than I can even imagine reading them. You've really sparked some conversation in there.
Good.
Yeah, I think everybody's getting nervous. These are things that we don't think about on a regular basis, you know. And yeah, I think they're really important that we think about this aspect of our life.
Right. And, you know, also, like I said, a very important thing is to take, you know, not people are forgetting about their physical life, you know, meaning contact information, utilities, things like that, and just thinking about privacy as online privacy. I mean, bottom line, you have Easy Pass, tracks where you go. If you use a Metro card in a certain city, it tracks where you go. I mean, the whole world is about tracking, and it's important that individuals recognize that and try to, you know, defend against it.
Yeah, you know, with the way the world has changed since 9/11, we've lost so much of our rights to privacy. And the storage of data, as a data person, that's what I do for a living, that everything is stored. I worked in the legal department for 12 years, and, you know, everything is stored. You can wipe your computer, you can do anything you want, and it's still stored, and it can still be pulled back up and tied to you. So,
you know, I hate to say it, it's like a bad relationship that just doesn't go away sometimes. And,
yeah.
and that's what the Internet is.
Absolutely. It's not a good thing sometimes. And, you know, at the beginning I used to hear people tell me, oh, well, I don't subscribe to you, or no, I won't do that because, you know, I don't log into YouTube, and I couldn't understand it. But as time has gone on and I see the things that are going on and how our privacy is just eroding, that I now get it. And now, you know, I'm sitting and going, gosh, I should have got it years ago. And I should have done something to protect myself a little better.
Absolutely.
But I guess it's never too late to start?
No, I think it's never too late to start, and it's never too late to really rethink what your privacy happens to be. I look at it like this. We have three lives. We have our personal life, our work life, and our digital life. The goal is to keep all three of them separate and to figure out a way to make sure they don't intertwine. And that, to me, is the best philosophy of living free and obtaining certain types of freedom.
Well, that is some great information there. That really puts it into perspective for me. Hey, folks, I invite you to call into the show. The phone number is 347-202-0228. Remember, I said the chat room is moving too fast for me to see your questions. Call on in and go ahead and ask your questions honest. We're not going to bite you. Okay, so, and you probably covered this a bit. If we've done nothing wrong or don't plan on doing anything wrong, why should we worry about all of this?
Because we don't know how this information is going to be used in 5 or 10 years from now. You know, everybody signs up to Twitter. At one point, Twitter's talking about selling the tweets to marketing companies. You know, our information is the gold online, okay? Because our information, whether it be a stupid DUI you got in a news article or, you know, just made that dumb mistake somewhere, that information is used to make websites money, okay? And my point is, in 20 years from now, kids today, when they get older, their children will be able to see the sins of the parents. They'll see it online. They'll see it in tweets, on blogs. And I just think the most important thing to consider is we don't know how the information is going to be used. And unfortunately, once something really bad happens to us, sometimes it's too late to actually do anything about it and protect the information or protect ourselves of how the information is used.
Yeah, you're right, because anything can be misconstrued.
Right. Listen, we all make mistakes. I mean, thank God I stopped drinking before social media came around, because there'd be a lot of funny pictures of Frank on the internet, you know. I just think that, you know, the internet is such a young thing right now, and, you know, it's moving so quickly. You know, the social media, I mean, our pictures online, our families. I mean, people put pictures of their children online. I mean, you wouldn't put a picture of your kid on a billboard for everybody to see. Why would you put it on Facebook? So any stranger, and nobody monitors who their friends are, because everybody wants 500 friends. And to me, it's just a lack of discretion.
Yeah, and you know, back when my kids were in school, at one point, I had signed the statement saying that no pictures or anything was allowed to be posted for my children, and it was due to hiding from a specific person. And I remember one year I went surfing the internet, because I, of course, would do that all the time for my children and myself, and I still do that, and I recommend everyone else do that. And I found a picture of my son from the football team, and wow. I was just astounded that they would dare do that and even post his name on it, especially when I had signed the statement saying never to do that. So you can't always trust that others are going to do what they're supposed to do.
Not only that, but terms of service change constantly, and most people don't read the terms of service to social sites. I mean, I think you got to be, 15 or 16 to join Facebook or something like that, or MySpace, whatever age it is. And the thing is, they have these terms of service that you have to be a lawyer to understand. They're 4 pages long, and they expect some 14-year-old kid to agree yes to it. You know, and anything you share is, you know, fair game. So, you know, I just think the bottom line is, you know, you have to think ahead and say to yourself, how's this going to affect me? Because, you know, having a blog about drinking beer may be cool now, but, you know, when you graduate college, it might not be so funny when you're trying to get that corporate job and they read that blog about you and they see those pictures of you getting drunk with your friends. So, you know, you have to think ahead.
Right. Okay, prepping you, I'm going to ask one more of your questions. If you have any more, you've got to call into the show. Background checks for handguns. Is that something you should even consider relying on?
I would say no, because, you know, that could just make matters worse. I mean, I don't know if it's national or statewide, but, you know, something, to me, that could just backfire. I would suggest no on that.
Yeah, prepping you might want to move to Texas. You buy a gun at a gun show, and there are no background checks. Just saying. So I like Texas. Texas is the best state to live in. It is changing because of all the Californians that are moving in here, and they're bringing their ideas. But so far, we still have that right that our guns don't have to be registered. You know, you go into a gun show and people are walking around selling their guns. And I have sold and bought guns. So the guns that I originally registered, I no longer own. You know, that kind of thing. So you just got to think about those kind of things. Okay. So as preppers, part of our goal is to get others prepared. With that, we tend to expose ourselves, and I believe at some point our prepping will be considered a crime. So we will eventually need to be invisible. But like you said, once it's out there, we can't really pull it all back in. So is there some sort of what you call walkaway plan that we should be kind of setting ourselves up for now? That is it something we can just flip a trigger on, or is it something that we should just be continually doing?
I think you have to look at it from the perspective of how do I become a virtual entity? You know, meaning in the real world, you know, the physical world, how can I operate where there's nothing attached to my name or social security number? And, you know, you can do that via existing under a corporation. Everything can be under a corporation, not your name. I mean, your cell phone can be prepaid. You can have prepaid credit cards. You could have a business, but it could be an out-of-state corporation in the different states you live in. And online, the same thing. How do I destroy what's out there? I think if you think from the perspective of how do I become virtual, where there's no physical connection to me, I think that's the walkaway plan you look for, and that's different, for different people. And some people can accomplish it, but others can't. Depends on what you do for a living and how you make your money.
Okay, that makes sense. Frank, you need to put out another book, and you know what it needs to be called?
What's it?
The Walkaway Plan.
It's funny you mention that, because I've been thinking about the next book, and it's very similar to something about that, about how do you wake up and just walk away.
That would be awesome, because some of us, we need those kind of step-by-step instructions, because we're going to miss something,
Exactly.
And we don't want to miss anything. So I would be there to buy it. His books are very well written, folks, and
Thank you.
quite enjoyable and chock full of information. I mean, you should see my notepads from reading the books and everything I wrote down and said, okay, check this, do that, because it makes such sense. Why don't you go ahead and give out your website again for the listeners?
Disappear.info. That's the best way to find me, and feel free to email me with questions. I'm always willing to talk.
And you are for hire, correct?
I am for hire.
He is for hire, folks. But I'm sure the clientele is up there. I know some of my listeners are up there, and if you need help in disappearing, give Frank a call.
Thank you.
So, is there anything that you would like to let us know that you think that we didn't cover tonight, or anything that you'd like to say?
The only thing I think is important is privacy is a personal thing. It's not something a corporation or a government should dictate, okay? And I think individuals just need to rethink what privacy is to them and just try to accomplish that. And I think that's the best piece of advice I can give.
Well, that makes sense, and it's a crazy world we're living in. The lack of privacy that we have, everything we do is monitored, and we're just, we're victims of the societal age that we're in, and so we have to keep all this in mind. As sad as it is that we have to do this, it's really important that we try this kind of stuff. So, let's see, I'm trying to look in the chat room to see if we have any questions, and I don't see any questions going, but we've got about 5 more minutes. So let me think. Give me just a second. I'm going to quickly go through my notes here. And so you started out as a skip tracer. What is a skip tracer?
A skip tracer is someone who finds people, and I just had this amazing knack for picking up the phone, but being able to find people via pretext. And one of my goals, I used to find people by obtaining phone records, bank records, credit card records. If you name it, I could get it. And that's what really my specialty, came in the past. And that's kind of, doing the disappearing and the privacy thing kind of goes hand in hand now, because I know how it's done. I know how information is being used. And, I know how, if somebody is looking for you or hunting you down, a stalker or something like that, I know the tricks that they'll use. And I also know how to basically create, the misinformation and disinformation that's needed in order to protect you and keep you hidden. Because if somebody's hunting you down, you got to keep them busy, and you got to keep them busy looking in, different places, not where you're going to be. Because that is a huge problem. Is most people disappear, but they don't create any disinformation and leave the fake bread trail. And
okay, so it's like you just follow it. If you find that one little lead, you can just follow.
Exactly, and they can make many mistakes, but you being the one trying to avoid the stalker, predator, or whatever, you can't make any mistakes because that mistake could be the downfall when takes you out of the game.
Yeah, and that was a mistake I made. I was found and had to move overnight, and it was very difficult because here you're trying to move an entire household, but you've got to move it to an alternate location so that the person who's following you thinks that's where you went. And
right.
So it was like my third move, and that was all because I didn't do it right the first time.
Right, and that's, so things we leave behind that kind of lead people to us.
So we got a question from Genius and Exile in the room. What is the hardest media to disappear on?
Probably newspaper. I'm assuming, meaning, I'm not quite sure I understand that. But the hardest thing to deal with online would be news media because that gets spread so quickly. And no matter what you do, the origins of that information is always going to exist. So I think that's what they're asking.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like to me. Basically, the Internet. And I would agree that, at least in what you've taught me is that the Internet is the hardest one because it's all out there. But as you said, it's the easiest one too, right? Because we can use the disinformation you've taught us.
Exactly. You have to use the best you can.
Yeah, well, you go into, examples in your book, which is really nice, folks. Change a letter in your name. That's something that's simple. Who would think?
Right, and you have to keep in mind also, when somebody's looking for you, it costs money. So if you can deviate your information as much as possible, it's something that they have to search for. And there could be 10 of you with different spellings of your name, one in Mississippi, one in Alabama, one in Chicago, one in Toronto, Montreal, and they got to search those places as well looking for you.
And try to figure out which one's the right one.
Exactly.
Hopefully they'll follow the one that looks the least crazy and just make yourself look a little crazy.
That's funny.
Well, Frank, I thank you so much for coming on tonight. It has been a great show, and you shared a lot of information with us.
Have a wonderful holiday and stuff. I appreciate it.
Well, you too. And, folks, don't forget to check out his books. He has you're on How to Disappear, Erase Your Digital Footprint, and Leave False Trails and Vanish Without Trace, and The Digital Hitman, His Weapon for Combating the Digital World. And don't forget to check out his website, and he's at frankahearn.com or disappear.info. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's the easiest one. Nobody spells Ahearn right, so disappear.info.
Well, thank you, Frank, and you have a wonderful holiday.
You too. Take care. Thank you. Bye.
All right, bye-bye. Okay, folks, so we're going to end as we usually do. I got my pages all mixed up, so here we go. You can find more information, as I said, on how to obtain his books from his site, frankahearn.com or disappear.info. And can join me on Tuesday, December 25th. Yes, I will be here. I hope some of you will. And at 8 p.m. Central Time, we'll be talking about setting up personal prepping goals for the coming year, what others are doing, and some ideas of goals to consider. For the new prepper, this will give you some great information to consider as you head through the next year on what to do next. For others, you might just need to bounce your ideas off others so that you'll have all your ducks in a row. Now, my quotes. Man is not what he thinks he is what he hides. Andre Maru. No nation hiding behind closed doors is free, for it is imprisoned by its own fear. Who else? Bill Clinton. For now, you can find more from me on YouTube and on Facebook. Also here every Tuesday on PrepperBroadcasting.com. Thank you for spending your valuable time with me. Good night and blessings.